Big data and artificial intelligence are shaping the enterprise. For Tech Republic and ZDNet, my name is Dan Patterson, and I'm joined today by Katie Rusalap, the founder and CEO of Funderbeam, as well as Nick Vandry, the head of data. Katie and Nick, thank you very much for your time today. You recently won the Best European FinTech Award for your analysis of big data and AI trends, and I wonder if we could start with a macro, if we could zoom out before we zoom in, a macro forecast of how big data and AI will shape the enterprise next year.
All right, I think that's quite a broad question, but it may be a good starting point. So I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense to think of data and AI as a specific industry, but as a technology that will shape and influence how other industries develop. So what we've seen now is that AI is being used in a wide variety of industries for a wide variety of tasks. And as computing power increases and data becomes more readily available, the more tasks it's become applicable to. So I think as we're going into 2018, and we've seen already an expansion of the use of big data and AI in industries, we'll only see that increase as people find more creative uses, as the amount of data becomes more readily available, and at the same time as people become more knowledgeable about the subject. So I think going into 2018, we'll only see the trends of using big data and AI across all sorts of industries increase.
And Katie, I wonder if you could tell us how European companies are investing in artificial intelligence and big data.
The European companies depend on what do you ask? Do you ask for European companies as VCs investing into the AI, or European companies as companies who invest AI as a tool to grow their business?
So that is reflected in the funding that we see in your report. 558 billion dollars of investment in North America and another 92 billion in Europe. What types of trends do you see emerging from this investment?
Let's kind of a bit take it the broader picture is that what Funderbeam looks in our data products is that we look how the industries are developing. And one industry is what we today talk about is the artificial intelligence and big data, right? And when we talk about the global funding, then we always compare three regions with each other. It's the North America, it's the Europe, and it's the Asia, right? When we talk about the North Europe or North America, and we talk about the Europe, then the amount of the funding in North Europe, North America is like 6 times bigger than we see it in Europe. So 6 times more funds go into AI and big data in US than Europe. So Europe in very many cases lag behind, and Asia is actually shaping up. And what we see is that actually early stage companies get funding in Europe, and when they grow bigger and when they need more funds, they go to the US and they relocate in the US. But again, exactly what Nick said is that what's shaping the funding and the amounts here in Europe next year is more about using the AI for specific services. So it's about applications. It's not about the AI as a technology, or if
Yes.
we can say it in the broader sense.
Yes, I wonder if you could tell me what specific services or what types of companies are getting funding.
In Europe?
In Europe and the rest of the world.
So a lot of the overlap right now, a lot of the companies that are using AI to provide services and getting funding are related to primarily the IT and the financial services. So a lot of fintech companies, a lot of consumer service companies as well are receiving funding. partially in part because of the way they implement API to add value to their service.
And the second very big industry, if we can kind of group it, it's the media, marketing, and advertising. This is the actually there's kind of three groups: marketing and advertising, social media, and news and media. But this means that the AI is very broadly used by those companies which need to produce some kind of a services or customer behavior of the end user.
And to put that into a little bit of context, what a lot of companies are doing is devoting a lot of their resources towards using AI in their advertising and marketing campaigns. So they're using AI to predict customer behavior based on previous trends. So they can tell which ads are most likely to be effective, which ads are going to convert user or somebody visiting the site to a user, what sort of web layout is going to help really take maybe help a user make a purchase or convert somebody who's visiting the site for the first time into a user, or what's going to help them add another item to their basket, or what's going to get them to click on an ad. And using a lot of past user behavior, they can predict what sort of ads and what sort of marketing strategies will be most effective.
And beyond advertising, how are companies applying data and AI in a B2B context?
So a lot of companies, particularly in a B2B context, a lot of companies are using their AI to identify strategic partners. One of the things that we're doing with our platform is using a text analysis to actually compare companies to each other and evaluate similar companies. So some companies are using tools like this to evaluate who's a potential business partner, who's a potential competitor, or who's an entry barrier to a market. They're using it in a lot of their communications. So now chatbots are becoming a rather popular thing, but this is more of a, I suppose, B2C. But at the same time, I would say that a lot of the effect is, a lot of what we're seeing is how these businesses are leveraging the AI to drive not necessarily business behavior, but consumer behavior. So when you're using this AI to kind of power marketing, or when you're using AI for something like Alexa or Siri, a lot of that is driving consumer behavior, but what it's doing is it's providing a lot of data that those companies can then use to sell to third parties, that they can use to improve their own algorithms. So I would say that the biggest effect really is the data that they get powering their consumer services, and then using that data as another asset.
And also from B2B, it's very often goes in a way that the applications and services built B2B, meaning that companies have built some kind of a AI tool for the businesses to provide better services for the customers.
Katie Ruusalap is the founder and CEO of Funderbeam. Nick Vandry is the head of data. I wonder if you could leave us with a forecast, a prediction about how AI and big data will be used in 2018 by the enterprise.
Sure. So AI, or the development of AI, is going to depend on two things. A is computational resources, which have been expanding rapidly. And B will be the availability of data, which is also becoming more readily available for companies to use. So we shouldn't confuse the availability for data for the availability of quality data. So the companies that are able to actually take all of the data that's out there, clean it up, and find what's relevant, and apply their models to that will be the companies that are successfully leveraging AI in the future. And as that those computational resources free up, and as that data becomes available, that will become an avenue for more and more companies. So it won't be just large companies like Google and Apple and Amazon using these tools, but a lot of startups as well, as they can really obtain this data. So I think what we'll see is a lot of services being implemented in new and interesting ways, powered by AI, at using small scale companies rather than relying on large institutions to provide these services.
And as Nick mentioned, data quality is the key here, because AI can only work based on the very specific and very detailed information. Is it the facts, or when we talk about the machines and robots on the street, the more information they get about the traffic, the better their performance becomes, and thus this kind of more and more application coming in that is built based on the AI that drives the need for the data scientists. So when we talk about the cool jobs for next year and jobs in high demand, and data scientists will be one of those very hot names.